who arbitrates what is spam versus what is not spam? Like obviously you would choose like keep it off your node, but then isn't every other node operator equally entitled to make that decision for themselves? And we're back into that market process of, okay, well, if it's 100,000 gigabytes or whatever the number is not the right thing, well, then people will run the 80 gigabyte ketabyte KB version.
Yep.
They'll run NOTs basically, and they'll not run core.
Yep.
So if core actually is detrimental to the integrity of the protocol itself, which is, I don't know, it's utility as money and perhaps other things. Like again, that it feels like almost semantic to me at that point.
Maybe so.
It's bidding for block space.
Yep.
Ultimately. And so if the operator limit expanding compromises the utility of that network, the selling of block space for whatever reason, for all the, there's criminal issues and these other, you said abhorrent material could be put on there, et cetera. Wouldn't the market just shift to the NOTs version and then that solves the issue? So I guess short version of the question is who arbitrates what is spam? And then in that process of arbitrating, doesn't Bitcoin sort of emerge naturally as one or the other?
Yep. So the nodes and the miners do. Here's the problem is that...
but the nodes are choosing the software, right? And the miners just enforcing the node selection.
Well, the miners are nodes as well.
Yes.
So...
But they're not, the non-mining nodes are actually selecting, they're creating the social consensus that is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then the miners enforce that consensus.
Yeah. And also that's why I think Datum is important, is because it's decentralizing building of blocks and handing that out instead of, I believe it's 6 nodes are building 95% of blocks. It's handing that out.
Disintermediating the mining pools.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, let me get back to that. But another thought I just had is that there's also a narrative that, listen, that's the way it is. It's been that way since 2013. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not true. Last week, we had someone with hash power, I think at, was it 10? Who created a 100% spam-free block using Datum at Ocean. So we're not powerless. Decentralization is the answer to that. Here's the problem, though, is that most people just don't understand this problem. And see another narrative that Core keeps pushing, and by Core I mean like everybody. And I've put Core with a trademark symbol that kind of means like, and I've also said like the core industrial complex. So I'm not talking about just developers or contributors or maintainers. Like Core and their supporters have said that, listen, shut up and just run NOTs, or shut up and don't upgrade. That's not a solution at all. That's a compromise is what that is.
Why is shut up and run NOTs not a solution?
Because nobody's going to do it. Until people understand.
Why is nobody going to do it if it's in their self-interest to do so?
Historically, 95% of node runners have just updated Core. That's what they do.
Not during the block size wars of 17.
And not right now. Yeah, because people are beginning to understand, and that's why you see NOTs right now at about 20%.
That's why I'm back to the market's sorting it out.
Yep.
Like I keep landing back on the same conclusion. Like the market is sorting it out. So I just feel like there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt, and all. And maybe that's a natural part of this campaigning, debating process about what Bitcoin is or should be. But it does seem like the incentive structures and market processes that are in place are actually doing what they always do, which is sort the shit out.
Yeah.
So therefore, I don't feel any concern at all.
Okay.
Up until this point, but you seem to be like there's existential concern here. So like I'm trying to, what am I missing? Why do I not feel that existential concern? Because
if Core is allowed to shove in whatever they want, they don't have to tell us why. They don't have to answer any questions about it. If we accept that in 30, what comes in 31? We're on a path of 1,000 cuts here is what I'm saying. I don't know where we are on it. Mm-hmm. But I also want to be clear, I'm not sowing FUD, because I do believe that we're going to come around and Bitcoin will survive. And listen, that's another thing. that this is our only chance. There won't be another. There can be better technology, and maybe it already exists. You know, I'm not going to mention any of the other blockchains, but they claim to have better technology. And if you listen to their pitch, maybe they do. Doesn't matter.
No, it won't matter.
It doesn't matter. You're never going to reproduce.
It's the path dependence.
That's right. It's
Shot.
the network effect. If this fails, we're not going to pick up the pieces and say, hey, let's try it again, but let's fix this and let's fix that. So,
Yeah.
and that's why a hard fork won't work either. So if anybody proposes that, I'm out.
So currently, even with knots, you can still put data onto the blockchain. So it's both a database and money. So it's like the car is both a car, but could be a house as well.
Well, you have to understand there's also ways, and that's a whole other part of this, is that there's ways of putting the data on Bitcoin.
With the 80 byte op return.
Yes. The purpose of the 80 byte op return is basically like a check. Breedlove's probably not old enough to remember checks, but you're old enough to remember.
I'm old enough. I signed a lot of checks in my day, actually. Yeah.
But that was like, for lack of a better term, it's like the memo line on a check that you could append something to that. It had a purpose in that you could also put a hash up to 80 bytes of arbitrary data on a monetary transaction. And the purpose of that was to keep it out of the UTXO set. So it's provably unspendable. It's never going to make it into this, shall we say, the live database of unspent transactions. So, and see, that's another thing that everyone will, I actually had one person respond, I've got the answer to your question. The problem it solves is UTXO bloat. It does not solve that problem at all. Not even close. You know, and someone else said that the 80 byte op return is like, you've got a bunch of people littering in Central Park. So you put a trash can, you encourage them to litter there. No, we don't have to do that. We don't have to capitulate to spammers. We don't have to do that. And another thing, it makes absolutely no sense to blow out this filter that is, in August, the 80 byte op return limit was respected by 99.93% of transactions. The filter is effective. It works. That would be like me coming to your house and you installed a deadbolt on your house on January 3rd, 2009. It's been 100% effective at keeping bad actors out of your house. But I look around and I see a window on the first floor and I say, bro, they could just go around and get in through the window if they're determined enough. A bad actor could still get in. So not only open the window, but remove the deadbolt on your door. You don't have to do that.
I saw Jimmy Song talking about that just the other day. Yeah.
Did he say that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yep.
Can we go back to spam? So I'm still hung up here. Who arbitrates what is spam, what is not? Maybe the precise question would be, you said Datum produced a spam-free block, I think is what you said.
A miner did.
A miner produced a spam-free block. Like, who designated that thing as spam-free? Is this like your opinion? Is it their opinion? Like, what constitutes spam? Because it seems like spam is a subjective value judgment.
Yep.
One man's junk is another man's treasure, as they say. So what is spam?
So he was, pardon me if I get some part of this wrong, he was relaying no arbitrary data. His data carrier size equals 0 was in effect on his node. So he relayed no arbitrary data at all onto the blockchain.
So it's pure transactional data.
Yep.
Nothing.
So the check analogy, nothing in the memo box.
Right.
Not a single thing.
Nothing. So if you look at that, I believe it would be green. The block would be, if you look on, you know, in Explorer, it was all monetary transactions.
Is that extreme? Is that the pendulum swinging too far the other way in this debate? Because, I mean, Satoshi inscribed something on the Genesis block.
No.
Around the chance of bailout. Or on the,
That was completely different because it's actually hard-coded. So that's never relayed. That's not in the UTXO set, nothing like that. Completely different.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that it is, there's a blurriness here because that field, if I'm using the check as the metaphor, that memo field can carry valuable information, right? Oftentimes you write the invoice number or the contract tranche or whatever it was, the purpose of the payment. So although that might not be pertinent to transmitting the transaction itself on the Bitcoin blockchain, it can be pertinent to the parties that are transacting.
It can be valid for the monetary transaction. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's like, even though it's non-essential data or whatever you want to call it, it's still relevant to the financial. It's still financial information, basically.
Yeah. You could still settle the transaction without it.
Yeah.
Another purpose of it is that you can, and 40 was fine forever. I think in 2013, 14 doubled to 80. Again, now why are we going 1250x on that? But also you could include a hash that's basically a timestamp. It says at this point in time, this right here existed, and you can prove it.
Which is useful.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is spam?
Any arbitrary data in a non-monetary transaction.
But so if I write the invoice number on the check that I'm writing to pay that invoice, is that spam?
That would be valid. No.
And that's valid because the recipient of the check finds it to be valid?
Yep.
So it's still the person receiving the payment, running the node, that's choosing what's valid and what's not. So spam is a subjective value judgment of each actor?
Not if you believe Bitcoin is money. That's why I come
Now
back
we're back to the thing where money is the voting process.
to my rigid
I thought
dogma.
we're doing the circle again.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that if Bitcoin survives, it survives because we're using it as money. So, and listen, there's this whole other thing about who are you to say that you paid the fee, it's valid. Well, if you get junk mail in the mailbox, that's not fundamentally changing because they paid a stamp or they paid postage. Still junk mail. You still don't want it. So
yeah, we have junk mail. Like, that's a thing, right?
Yep.
So isn't this just going to be a thing on Bitcoin?
No, we can stop it. We're not powerless.
And so Knots has an 83 byte op return because it's 3 bytes of code.
Yeah, it would be 83 total.
So is the counter argument to what Core is trying to do just no op return? No
Essentially,
arbitrary
it's
data
no op
alter-
return. It's limitless. Yep.
But with an 83 byte op return, you can still put some arbitrary data on there.
There's been I haven't heard anybody complaining about that or moving that we bring that back down. There's been
said, what problem does it solve?
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Okay. So I have to ask you what money is. I mean, that's what we've come to. It's like, well, we've run the circle. It is, we want Bitcoin to succeed. We have to use it as money. Well, then we need to define what money is. Is it more than just this selection process where people are choosing what is money for them, and then the consensus of that selection process is money? What else is it?
I'm completely unprepared to answer that as far as like having a profound answer. I know what it's been throughout history, and so my answer would be really, really
pretty
simple.
central to your argument, though.
Yep.
Don't you have to have a definition of money to put forth the argument you're putting forth?
Well, it's more than one thing because we have a store of value, and also that if you and I come together and we want to exchange money, we've stored our value in this money that we also agree upon its worth,
but that could be a JPEG of the Bitcoin logo that an individual pays 10 Bitcoin for, inscribed into one SAT transaction. Both parties could agree that JPEG is money. So it's definitely subjective.
Yeah, but you don't have to inscribe it on Bitcoin. You don't have to put it in the UTXO set. You don't have to put it on the blockchain, and I don't have to relay it. That doesn't have to be on Bitcoin. Listen, if they want to do that, that's fine. Go on Ethereum and Solana. It works great for that. If you're looking for a database, Oracle is fabulous. It doesn't need to be on Bitcoin.